Remember that we said that for you to have a very effective male sexual activity, you have to have these three components. Your heart must be strong enough to pump the blood, because you need blood to flow into the place where you need it so that erection can occur. Welcome to Dayspring Life and Health Channel. This is Dr. Oteng coming to you again. We are continuing on our series on diabetes, and if you missed last video, we talked about how diabetes affect women in terms of specific infections on women, as well as how it affects their sexual function. Today we are going to talk about how diabetes affects men, and in particular how it affects the sexual function or sex in men. Before we go ahead, I want to encourage you, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button below and hit the like button so that the video will reach more people. How diabetes affects sex in men. We are going to talk about three things in this area. One are the components of the sexual function. What makes a man actually act or do well in sex? What is involved in having a good sexual function? And then the second thing we're going to talk about is how diabetes affects these components, or how diabetes affects these things that are involved during sex. And then lastly, we're going to also talk about what we can do to prevent some of the damage that we get from diabetes or high blood sugar. So the first one we're going to talk about, as I said, is what is involved in a man's sexual function. For a man to enjoy or have a good, healthy sex life, they must have a good sensory organ, or a good part of their body being able to respond to stimulus. So they should have the sensory component, I should say, including the eyes, and then the nerves that go to all the peripheries of the body, including also to the sexual organs. The second component is the plumbing, or the vasculature, the arteries and the veins that supply blood to our body. You have to have that one as another good component of a good, healthy sex life. That should be also there. And then the third one is what I call the pump, which basically is the heart. So you got to have the sensory component, you have to have the vascular component, and you have to have the heart component. All three must be working well in order to have a good sex life. Let's talk about each one of them, why they are involved and why they are important. So for sensory, as we said, before you can receive the urge, you need to be stimulated by your eyes. So you have to have eyes, and if you're able to see this video, if you're able to watch this video, it means that that particular component is still intact in terms of sight. The second one, though, could be tricky, which is the nerves that go into your hands, into your legs, into your skin, into your body, into your groin, into your sexual organs. Those nerves also have to be very active and not damaged in order to have an enjoyable life in terms of sex. And then also the pump, which is the heart, is the one that pumps blood into the organs. In particular, the organ we are talking about now is male sexual organ. So you have to have a good heart, or a healthy heart, I should say, that is able to exert the pressure that you need during the act of sex to be able to pump your blood into the organs. Let's move on to the third area, how this diabetes affect these components. Starting from the sensory, what happens is a high blood sugar affects the eyes. We will have an in-depth talk about that. But more importantly, because you can watch this video, if you have diabetes, it means you haven't had that much yet. I mean, you may have it, but at least you can see for now. So for what we are interested in now is the part where you sense touch, and that sensory system is something that is done by the nerves, and the nerves get damaged. The nerves that go to the places where they need to be stimulated during sex, those nerves become damaged just because of the high blood glucose levels that the person may have had over periods, because your male sexual organ that is innervated with lots of nerves are no more responsive because they are damaged, and so there's no feeling, or there's minimal or decreased feeling. The next one, which is the vascular or the plumbing aspect of the prolonged uncontrolled high blood sugar levels, also lead to a narrowing of the arteries, atherosclerosis, and it is deposit of cholesterol-like material inside your tubes, inside your arteries, inside your plumbing, I call it plumbing, such that they narrow. And because they have narrowed, blood supply to your organs, including to the sexual organ, is limited, is reduced. And when that happens, because there's a reduced blood supply, there's going to be reduced erection and reduced gorging and all that. A man cannot do what a man has to do. The next one that we will talk about is the heart, the pump. I call it a pump. So for a man to be able to stand and do what a man has to do, you have to have a healthy heart that pumps blood even to all the other parts of the body, but in this case in particular to the male sexual organ. And if your heart is not healthy enough to do that, then obviously that cannot happen. And the way diabetes decreases the man's ability to do that, the atherosclerosis, or the building up of plaque in your arteries, leading to narrowing even in the blood vessels, including the huge blood vessels that go in and out of the heart. So the pump, which is the heart itself, also getting lots of problems with pumping, because all the pressure it is pumping against has made it not as effective as it should be as a pump. So when the heart pumps, the maximum blood flow must occur, directing some to where you need it most during the sexual activity. But because the pump, which is the heart, is pumping against a pressure, then that doesn't happen as much. So in diabetics, high blood pressure occurs 2 times more than any other person else. So with high blood pressure and the pumping against the high blood pressure, definitely the pump is not going to do the best job, and so you cannot get the volume of blood that you need in your sexual organ when the time comes and you need it. And the other thing is that diabetes itself causes a weakening of the heart, what we call heart failure. And as a matter of fact, it also leads to cardiomyopathy. It leads to the muscles of the heart weakening and not working right. Remember that we said that for you to have a very effective male sexual activity, you have to have these 3 components. Your heart must be strong enough to pump the blood, because you need blood to flow into the place where you need it so that erection can occur. So you need the heart. The second component that we said is that the tubes, the pipes through which the blood is going to flow, must also be clean. They must not be filled with plaque. And so the tubes which are filled with plaque, which basically also increases in a diabetic person because of high blood sugar, plaques form, and so the tubes become compromised, and so you cannot get effective blood flow to the areas where you need it, and in this case, in your sexual organ. And then the last thing that we said is that diabetes also destroys the sensory portion of a man's sexual activity. So not only will you not feel it as much, because the nerves that you should respond to are not really all responsive because they are damaged due to high blood sugar. You can stimulate it all you want, but you don't see the results. Why? Because the sensory thing, the nerves are damaged and they cannot send any response, any signals to the brain for the brain to effect the change that you need down there when you need it most. How do we solve this problem? The first thing is to ensure that if you are not diabetic, you stay not diabetic by watching your diet, exercising, and ensuring that you do the things that we have discussed all this while on our channel. The second thing is that watch your blood pressure, because blood pressure is also something that sneaks up on diabetics so quickly. I mean, most diabetics have high blood pressure alongside with diabetes. So if you have diabetes, ensure that you treat high blood pressure as much as possible, and also treat cholesterol. Cholesterol also goes up as an effect of diabetes. So if you have diabetes, most likely you will have high cholesterol. Another way to mitigate it is to exercise. Exercise ensures that your heart stays healthy. You have a healthy heart that continues to pump blood, and exercise will ensure that your blood pressure will be less than than most. And a routine exercise will ensure a healthy heart. It will also boost your energy levels as a man, increase your testosterone levels and other chemicals that will ensure that you have the energy to do what you got to do as a man. Beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers.